Hey, what's up, family? Welcome to the Culturalist podcast, Conversations with Pam Ross. Listen, I just had the most amazing conversation. My guest today is Michele LaMarr-Suggs. Write the name down. Michele LaMarr-Suggs. She is, how can I say it? I'll give you the official title. She is a certified nurse midwife. She's the CEO of a community-based organization, Royal Generation Inc. But beyond all of those things, Michele is a champion of midwifery. I learned how to say that correctly. She's also a champion of Black maternal health. She understands the causes of the disparities of outcomes when women who look like me have babies, why the mortality rate is as it is in comparison to women of other ethnicities here in the United States. She has testified on a state level before boards. She is a university professor. She is a mentor and a coach. She is an expert, and I don't use that word often. She's an expert in what she does. 15 years in women's health experience, but beyond that, she's a multiplier, she's a sister, she's a friend, and I'm so excited to have you meet her. We had a fantastic conversation, and we also were able to get a little personal for Patreon. We get personal for Patreon, and we had some looking into how she balances her life, what is giving her hope in today's society, and what role does mentorship play in her life? So if you're a Patreon supporter, you can go over to patreon.com/the Culturalist Podcast, and you can get that portion as well. And if you haven't decided to support us yet, why not? Email me and tell me why not. Why not? It's well worth it, and we would love you for it. So appreciate you. But without further ado, please welcome into the conversation with my dear sister and friend, Michele Suggs. Hi, I'm Pam Ross, the Culturalist. I love good conversations with interesting people. In this podcast, we use the art of conversation to explore what's happening in culture. Thanks for joining us. Hello, hello. How are you?
Dr. Ross, I am well. How are you?
I'm doing great. I'm super happy to see you again.
I'm happy to see you too.
Yeah. And I'm excited to have this conversation with you. I was going to say about the work that you do, but I think it's beyond just the work that you do. I think it's about who you are. I think it's a calling because it checks all the boxes in my apostolic brain of being like, this is beyond work. This is this call to Black maternal health is really something that the wind of God is in with you. So let's just start at the beginning. And if I forget to say it, please give my love to your family. Yes.
Oh, yes. They love you.
Yes, please.
The world loves you. Like, how can
Oh, I'm still amazed. I'm still amazed and a bit taken aback when I meet people and they say, I just love you because I already love them. I love that scripture where Jesus has this encounter with the rich young ruler, and the Bible says he looked at him and loved him. And for me, that's proof that there is love at first sight.
And there's love that connects with authenticity. And
yes.
So that is you, like just so authentic to your call. And it's just amazing. Because even though the word authentic is overly utilized, there are so few people who are authentic, who are true to their call and their assignment. And I just love you. And I'm just so thankful for you.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Well, let's get into this. So it's more than just a passion. It is a calling to Black maternal health. How did this thing first spark in you? Because it's very specific. How did it spark in you? And what was the journey like of it growing into everything that you're doing now?
So I like to say that I stumbled on this by accident, but I think
Mm.
God derailed what I thought was my plan. God derailed to bring me to a place of purpose. And so I started out in, I'm born and raised in Philadelphia, and in the era in which I grew up, the picture of success was either being a physician, being a lawyer, being a teacher. And so I grew up wanting to be a physician. And so that's all
Yes.
I knew was I had this path from elementary school to high school. I went to a high school that was motivated by the sciences and STEM, went to college, pursued a degree in biotechnology, started out in a PhD program, transition program at Johns Hopkins to be a researcher. Like I had it all planned out. It was the first graduating class at my university in biotechnology, which was a new thing. And now it has evolved to so much more. So I had this plan. I was working my plan until I got in the midst of it. And I got to Johns Hopkins one summer sitting in the lab. And I was like, God, this is not what I'm supposed to do. And so
Mm.
it kind of like shifted everything in a way that I was not prepared for. So
Yeah.
college graduate, went home, thought I had a plan, but had no plan. And I was like, what do I do now? I have a degree, but not pursuing my degree. And so I ended up
Mm-hmm.
working in child welfare in Philadelphia. So I worked as a social worker, doing foster care and adoption for many years, and was just unfulfilled. But in the midst of that, my best friend, I was able to be with her during the prenatal care and delivery for her children. And I encountered a midwife. And I was like, what is a midwife? And she just kept talking about how awesome they were and how they were so transformative. And I was like, I gotta go to one of these appointments with you. And just to see how the power of the midwifery model, which is different than the medical model in that midwifery focuses on wellness and wholeness as opposed to illness. And so when you think about medicine, we
Mm.
think about from a deficit model perspective, what's wrong with,
Absolutely.
and let me fix what's wrong. Whereas with midwifery, it focuses on a holistic model of care that just not focuses on physical well-being, but physical, emotional, spiritual, financial, sociological. And so to see the balance of that come out with the power of human presence was just phenomenal, with
My goodness.
education, with respectful care. And I was like, wow, I could do this. And so from that moment, I literally dropped everything that I was doing. And I was working as a social worker. And my supervisor, she said to me one day, after this experience, I was like the woman at the well. I was going back and telling everybody about my
Yes.
experience. And she began to see, she was like, Michele, I can tell that you're not fulfilled doing this, but I'm going to help you get to where you are fulfilled. And so she allowed me to stop. Like I worked full time and went to school full time to be able to pursue nursing, and then in turn to go back to expand my training to be a midwife. So what was supposed to be a 9 to 5 job, she was like, you do it in the evenings, weekends, whenever you can, and you go to school 9 to 5, Monday through Friday, sometimes Saturdays. That's it's unheard of. So I know it's
It
all.
is unheard of. You know, as the leadership lady, so often I talk about vision and its effect on identity. And
Yes.
someone, as a leader, someone can be in your organization and discover who they are, but they can also discover who they're not.
Like, yes.
And you have a responsibility to both people, not just to develop the ones that are going to stay with you and build your dream, but the ones who have something that's maybe a little different or bigger or whatever from where they are. And your responsibility is to get them
Yes.
to where they're going. But
And
I've
it's
not heard of anyone doing it.
and so it was so amazing because we often as believers have this mindset that God is going to always use other believers to bless you. The
Mm-mm.
people who have transformed my journey were unbelievers.
Come
And
on.
God used my life to be a light, not only to them, but to be a testament of his goodness and his glory in my life. And so I'm just, it just gets me fired up. But so I went and I started doing midwifery. I was there for my friend's births, and the same midwives who I witnessed care for her, my best friend went to them and said, hey, my friend is now in midwifery school and she needs a clinical placement. They said, which is unheard of. Usually you have to go to many different locations for clinical training. They were like, we'll take her for her full education. took me on, not even knowing me, not even knowing my educational abilities. They were like, we got you. And those
Yes.
midwives literally midwifed me through my
Yes.
journey to becoming a midwife. And I'm just so thankful. And so that got my roots into maternal health. And you said it you nailed it on the head. I always say, being a midwife is not a job for me. This is not a
No.
career. This is not for me to get to the next big thing. This is a calling. I believe that before, as the scripture says, that before he knew us, he formed me in my mother's womb. And I believe
Yes.
that God knitted my purpose and assignment together, and he just plopped it in time. And I just began to run with what I was called to do from the foundations. And
I
so
love it.
it didn't come without opposition, and it didn't come without a lot of challenges, but
That's
God.
okay. Those were things that built your muscle
Yes.
so that when you got there, you would be fully equipped.
Yes. Yes.
Because if your whole journey was on one of those moving sidewalks, you would have no strength when you got there.
And
You're
I also
right.
believe that God doesn't call the prepared, he prepares the called. And
Yes.
even areas where sometimes I like, you always, so you helped to form this word in my life that has been so transformative, the imposter syndrome. And so
Yes.
sometimes, even when God has called you, there's a level of imposter that tries to rise up. But God
Yes.
even has healed me in areas from that imposter syndrome where I feel like I'm not called, I'm not qualified. Just like Moses, he wasn't called or qualified, but he said, if you open up your mouth, I'll fill it. And
I'll
so
feel
I
it.
allow my life to be filled, even in those places where I feel inadequate, that God has called me to just allow God to fill every area of my life and every space that I enter.
Man, when I tell you, I absolutely love it. And I love the fact that you said the midwives actually served as midwives to you in your education, in your career. And you said
And
something else
now
that transitioned.
in my career, like they still are like some of the best mentors that I have, an example
Amazing.
of what this work looks like.
It is a particular community that I have found anytime I've had an opportunity to peek into it. This community has a culture of inclusion,
Yes.
and
Yes.
they place a high value on reproduction. We'll get into that like reproducing themselves, and it appears that there is a responsibility, a personal responsibility to make sure you're not the last one.
Yes. Oh, see, I get so excited. This is my jam. So I get so many emotions come out, and what it not only means for the midwives, but it means for the people that we are serving. And so many
Yes.
people think midwifery is limited to, oh, you deliver babies. Well, that is a small fraction of what I do. Not only do I help to birth babies into the world, which is an awesome calling, but birthing parents into the next phase of their life, birthing purpose in the person that sits in front of me, bringing out
Wow.
healing, dealing with trauma. It is just so amazing what God allows you to be able to unveil, unravel, and birth in the lives of people all around.
What I find to be brilliant, and you don't know this about me, my grandmother was a midwife.
She was a great woman. She was, see, I knew it was the reason that I loved you. And see, now I know.
My grandmother, my mom's mother,
Wow.
was a midwife. And
Wow.
so in a small town, I met many, many, many people that she was a part of their birth or a part of their pregnancy. And she had 11 children, two sets of twins.
Wow.
Yeah, had twins
You come
back to
from a
back.
rich heritage.
Yes. And Anne was a woman of faith, but you knew
Yes,
that.
yes.
Yeah.
And bringing that all together and just what, so you framed it perfectly. Some of the concepts of what midwifery now is has become a little bit limited, but historically we know, especially in Black communities, what
Yes.
midwives represented. So they were
Yes.
not just like delivering babies, they were a
Mhm.
pillar in community, in presence, in birth, in policy, in community, in structure,
Yes.
in religion. Like they were the pillars. And so
Yeah.
that's one of the other things about midwifery that I love, that it isn't limiting. I don't have a lane
Yeah.
necessarily,
And
but
I,
men and meshing like your grandmother, the spiritual components of what this means to respond to the call that God has given us.
yes.
Yeah.
Even my mother has memories of the celebrations ahead of time. helping people prepare their home.
Yes.
I'm like, what? I literally thought it was just labor and delivery.
Yes.
And then afterwards, going looking at the aftercare of how are you sleeping? Who's supporting you? Who's feeding your other children while you're taking care of nursing this child? It was such a thing that when I had three daughters, and I had three daughters like every 2 years. I went 5 years marriage, no babies, and God gave us a miracle. And so then I had a baby, then 2 years later I had a baby, then 2 years later I had a baby. And now I understand how the unwrapping and the inspection.
Yes.
And my first one was C-section. Undress me. Let me see the work that was done.
Yes.
Now,
Like,
all of what are you eating?
yes.
How much water are you drinking? Let's put like, this is what all of the care, because that was her calling and it was my inheritance. I just was like, Grandma, the doctors have said whatever, whatever, Yes. And later, now I begin to realize, oh, wow, that was my inheritance. And I almost
Yes.
dishonored it.
Yes.
Yeah.
What, like those intricate pieces. So even when it comes to Black maternal health disparities, we know that most of the worst outcomes, most maternal deaths are happening not during pregnancy, not before, but they're happening within 42 days to 1 year postpartum. So those
Really?
Yes. So those times are so crucial, like checking in on the moms, giving that mental and emotional support. Just like you said, what are you eating? Who you're
Yep.
feeding them, who's feeding you, not only
Who's
from a
feeding you?
physical perspective, but who's helping to get inside of your head to see how you
Yes.
feeling. What are you thinking? You would carry these babies for 9 complete months, or like what we say, 10 months. And
Yeah.
it becomes about us. But after that, we forget about us. For when we had my son,
Now it's about,
it's
yes, now it's about the baby.
that's what I remember when we had our son, who was also our miracle, 7 years of going through trying to have children, and doctors told us we could not. Then we had our miracle, Micah. And I
Mm-hmm.
remember like everybody was so excited and like, oh, you see, until he came and it was like, okay, give me my baby. You go sit down. It was like,
Yes.
get that you even exist. But the
Yes.
trauma that can also impose because you feel not seen often translates to not being heard. And even in those things that are the number one killers in maternal for Black maternal health, are silent killers. So not only are there physical things that are happening silently, but
Yeah.
presence becomes silence in some ways too, and your voice muzzled. So that postpartum period is so critical. So your grandma, she understood the assignment.
She did.
Yes.
She understood it so much so that when I had my first one, emergency C-section, my mom came up. Like after every baby, my mom came up.
Mm-hmm.
And you're thinking like it's like it's how they say the more you know, the more you know. But now I realize, oh, this is a part of my inheritance, this level of care for you,
Yes.
that recognizing the importance of what happened. So speaking of voices, ma'am, you have testified before government bodies and served on review committees. What are some of the most urgent policy changes that still needed to improve Black maternal health? Because we hear about the disparities, we kind of chalk it up to they don't really care about us, or they don't really listen to us, or there's some miseducation that happens in medical schools about us. But we don't think of it as a policy issue. How is it a policy issue?
So we have to think about many of the things that we are combating and facing, especially for Black women. It deals with structural and systemic racism.
Mm-hmm.
As much
Yes.
as we try to dismiss it away of, oh, it's okay. No,
Oh
it's
no, it
not.
is what it is.
We have the statistics to prove that Black women are dying at higher rates, 3 to 4 times more higher than their white counterparts. And in some states like New York, 9 to 12 times higher. And so we know that this is happening. And I tell my patients all the time, it's not because you're a Black woman that you're susceptible to facing challenges with things like diseases like preeclampsia or other conditions, it's because you're a Black woman in America. And so what
Wow.
relates to is that when people of color present to emergency rooms, when they call
Yes.
with concerns, it's like, oh no, you're fine, you're fine, you're fine.
Mhm.
Their concerns are being silenced or dismissed. So it gives those diseases time and those conditions, it progresses and worsens because what happens is they tell you you're fine. You're like, all right, I guess I'm fine. And you need to
Yes.
continue to show up, continue to advocate, continue to say no. So I tell I train people all the time. You are the expert of your body. Nobody can
Yes.
tell you what you're feeling, what you're not feeling, what is normal and what is not. And so teaching within those systemic in those systems and healthcare systems, especially teaching, having implicit bias training. We all have
Yes.
internal biases within us. Even as Black people, we have bias. And so
Absolutely.
addressing those biases and not just ignoring them away. And not only that, when they arise and when they surface, being confident enough in who we are in our position to call it out. And so I believe in a model of not always calling out, but calling into a place of safety. Hey, I
Mm.
noticed you did this, or I noticed you said, can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
What were you saying what were you saying in that moment? Like getting into the heads of people, into their actions to really say, no, I see you and this is not right, but let me help you correct that.
Yeah.
Helping develop policies within healthcare systems that address structural and systemic racism. Helping to, so when we talk about those that postpartum period, that time, 42 days, especially up to 1 year postpartum,
Yeah.
many of the things that people think are that people are dying in hospitals. While this is true, we know for Philadelphia especially, only about 20%, and I'm not saying only to minimize it, but
Right.
20% of the outcomes are happening in and around birth in hospital settings. The other 80% of outcomes that are leading to maternal deaths are happening once people go home. So what do
Wow.
we need to address?
That's mind blowing to
It's mind
me
blowing. So the
because the picture that I have in my mind is usually of someone in a hospital, not necessarily getting the quality of care they deserve.
yes. And so
Wow.
that translates to is that people are dying because of limitations or access to things, what we call the social determinants of health. And so these are
Mm-hmm.
the conditions in which people are born, which they live, which they grow, which they age. And so things are, do they have access to healthy food resources? Do
Yeah.
they have access to adequate housing? Do they have access to quality education? Are they living in safe communities? One of the highest reasons for maternal death, especially amongst Black women, or all women especially, but Black women, is gun violence. So what are we
Wow.
doing with our legislators to impact policy surrounding gun violence? What are we doing
Yeah.
in terms of intimate partner violence? What are we doing? And so on the Philadelphia Mortality and Morbidity Review Committee that I sit on, we not only look at the aspects of what's happening in hospitals and homes and birth centers, but we're looking at, are the police cameras in underserved and marginalized zip codes working? So when we have someone who's dying because of intimate partner violence, why does zip code 191, I'll say 09, for example, not have the same access to safe conditions as
Yes.
151? So examining and holding accountability to all of the systems that affect maternal health is so, so important.
It's remarkable that we can't ignore. And I know, and I'm wondering how you are mentally and even emotionally um, processing a lot of the information that is, or a lot of the initiatives that are happening with this current presidential administration here in the US that wants to pretend, we just want to whitewash history and we want to pretend like it must be another reason because racism doesn't exist anymore.
That's a whole nother like pile of beans that I just like, it's so mind blowing, but it's not like,
Mm-hmm.
this is what people think. And so I love it in some ways, not that it's happening, but that we're able to outwardly see what is happening.
Yes.
So many times before it was like, oh, this not happen. People don't think that. But when you have the leader of our free nation openly expressing it,
Yes.
are able to get into the hearts of men, which not only in us from a natural perspective, address the issues, but and from a spiritual perspective, it teaches us how to pray, how to
It
intercede,
does.
because it is real. And so really helping to work with policy legislators to reframe policy, especially things like, you know, one of the big things that affects our maternal health, especially Black maternal health, is access to quality care,
Yes.
to Medicaid. Like, you
And
know,
when you, yes, and when
it,
you get there, by the time you get there, depending on where you live.
especially like exclusions and inclusions in coverage. So one of the things that we've worked on is access to doula coverage, getting
Yes.
certification and reimbursement within our state, getting coverage. We know that preeclampsia can be one of the highest reasons for maternal mortality and morbidity amongst Black women. Getting blood pressure cuffs covered by insurance. Like, these are things that should be like a no-brainer. Like, of course,
Yes.
think that we have to fight and fight and fight. Getting access to health for reimbursement for midwives at equitable rates as physicians. You know, so
Yes.
these are all barriers that we're fighting and that we are being successful in, but it comes with persistence. It comes with diligence. It comes with understanding the assignment and the call. Because if you face it as if this is a job, you'll quit. I would have quit on date before I even started.
Because it's big.
It's big.
It is a big issue. And it's like a huge tree and the roots are very deep. And then this whole denial thing, I do appreciate your perspective to say we're actually glad that it's come up because I see a mirror here. I see it in the we've seen it in the medical community for a long time. The denial of, no, that's not the reason. There's got to be another reason. And now we have all the stats to prove, yeah, actually, systemic racism is the reason. And now we're seeing it governmentally. So I think these conversations that we're having now, even around medical care and particularly Black maternal health, have to happen around education, have to happen around housing. Yes, we have to have this same type of advocacy.
And we have the data to prove. So
Yes.
an interesting thing is that when people say, oh, it's because, you know, they're Black, or it's not happening because they're Black, we have data and statistics to show that Black women, despite education, so women who have a college degree or even master's level or above, are dying at higher rates than white women who only have a high school diploma. We know that Black women who are have higher paying jobs and education, despite socioeconomic status, are dying at higher rates. Look at people like Serena Williams.
Exactly.
Ali. Racism knows no bounds. And so I'm glad that it has come to the light because it nullifies the ideologies of, oh, this isn't happening, or this, like, no, it is.
Yeah, either it's not happening or it's not about ethnicity, or maybe it's just about economics. It's not about economics. It's not about education. The one single factor there is Black.
Single denominator.
Yeah, that's a single denominator. So let's face it.
Just face it.
I love it.
And we have so many people, so many organizations. And let me say this, so many allies that understand. And because people think, oh, well, they're white, they don't understand. No, that is not true. I have so many allies on the front line who are white women who say, you know what? No, we know, we see, we understand, we're walking with you, and we're going to help to address these disparities. And that's so powerful.
I've been seeing I don't know if it's the algorithm blessing me or what, but I have been seeing more allies speaking out on social media about these disparities and what needs to be changed, not just in medical care, but even in the education of physicians and other providers. So you're right. You can't look at it as a job because it's way too big. It's like trying to shovel a mountain. But I want you to tell me about Royal Generation. What inspired its creation? What kind of impacts are you seeing? First of all, what is Royal? For those that haven't read all the stuff, what is Royal Generation? What do we do?
So Royal Generation is a nonprofit organization that I started back in 2020. And it was really birthed out of answering the call. So during that time, as you know, we were going through a pandemic. And as a midwife, I was seeing so many people in my office who were overcome with loss of loved ones, overcome with facing COVID illness themselves, job loss, like just a sense of frenzy of not knowing how to navigate during those difficult times. And so I wiped so many tears, I gave so many hugs, and I said to God, one day, one woman walked out of my office, and I just felt so helpless. And so even in healthcare settings, we don't always have all the resources. Like, you would be surprised how many times we don't have social services to be able to help. There's no real interdisciplinary connection. And so we often say, and that's why with medical models, it can sometimes be complex, because we'll give you the medicine, we'll put the Band-Aid on, but we don't have any resources or systems or structures to really help address the other things
that are affecting your medical condition.
Yes.
Yeah. So it's not like I can treat this part and this will be good.
Yes.
And that part is somebody else. They all affect.
Come together. So I literally remember the patient room that I was sitting in. And after she left, I just sat in my chair and I literally said out loud, God, there has to be something more that I can do. And I got home and I had a talk with God during my car ride home. And he said, I want you to plan a community baby shower. And at that time, I'm going to tell you, back in 2020, while community baby showers are very popular now, it was not something that was the norm. And so I was like, all right, God. And so I have to, sometimes with that imposter syndrome that tries to creep in.
You're like, me?
Yes. I was like, talk myself out. Well, how do you do that? Nobody you don't even have the money to do it. I had to jump on it in that moment because I know the historic done. And so I said, okay, God, if you said to do it, I'm going to do it. So I called my closest friends and I was like, listen, we need to do a community baby shower and I need to do it in 30 days. And so, and some people were like, oh, that's amazing. I'm down. Let's do it. Most people, 95% of people were like, let's do it. And I was like, oh, I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting them to be like, how do you do that? That's not possible.
Right. You were expecting them to sound like the voice in your head.
And when
what? I'm not, what is it? Huh? And then they sounded like the voice of God saying, let's go.
And we did it. And I had $0. I literally went to my family, to my friends, to my husband and I pastor a church in Philly, to our church, and to my mom. My mom in the beginning was, and still is, the #1 supporter. And so we put all our resources together. We got money together, got our resources, supplies. We gave out car seats, strollers, wipes, diapers, clothes, like anything that you could imagine, maternal care supply, everything you can imagine within 30 days. And we did it for about 75 families.
That is awesome.
Not only did we do it, we did it in the middle of COVID. So masks, gloves, all the things, because during that time, people were severely paralyzed by what COVID meant, what they didn't know what it meant, what the impacts were. And we got out there and we did it. And it was just so amazing to see the impacts and the ripple effect into community. And so we've been going each year since then. I formed it as a nonprofit organization a year or so later. But we've been doing it every year. So our last one was on May the 10th. We had 250 people walk through our door. It's evolved from not only just like tangible resources, but we have exhibitors that come out who specialize in mental health. We have health systems and hospitals, birth centers, lactation consultants. We have father support groups. So we know that so despite what fake news says,
right,
we know CDC has research to show that Black fathers, despite the narrative, are the most involved group in their children's lives. Yet the narrative claims that they're absent, that they're not, that, and so we have resources that support the Black father, that help to build them and not come from a deficit model, but to see the value in what they bring to family structure. So we have local food pantries. My sister runs a nonprofit in Delaware County. She started a food pantry in her backyard and now is serving hundreds and hundreds of family a week in Delaware County. So bringing all those resources together, my church comes out and we not only give out supplies, but we offer like prayer and empowerment during that. we're just bringing it all together and just making it a fun, festive, celebratory time where people feel the love. And so I also, one thing where we have missed it in society is that we feel like sometimes when we have these events that we're given a handout.
Come
My
on.
model is we're given a hand up. And so
Yes.
we work from a level of royalty and excellence. When they walk through those gates, they not only feel the love, but they feel the presence of God. And we've had, I can go on and on, but we've had the second year that we did it, we had a young lady who was walking by. And so our prayer team is praying during, before, providing prayer and support during the actual event. We had a young lady who was walking by, pregnant. She knew nothing about the event, had a 2-year-old toddler who walked in our gates. And someone, just out of the nature of what we do, embraced her and gave her a hug, walked her and walked her around. She came back and said, "You guys don't know, but as I was walking by your gates, I was contemplating suicide." And so the power of what this does in so many ways to impact and bring healing and deliverance, being able to pray for her, being able to just partner and connect with her, not just that day, but days thereafter.
Yeah.
It's evolved into, from our community baby shower, which is one of our largest initiatives, to mentoring the next generation of birth workers and midwives to increase representation, because we know that diversity matters. We have
Yes.
and research to say that concordance in healthcare, meaning that the person that you are seeing represents the person that is serving you, meaning that having concordance as a Black provider to a Black patient increases and improves outcomes. So helping to diversify the perinatal workforce, because we know at the end of the day, people who look like us, who understand the call and assignment, they're going to go back and work in these most acute, critical zip codes.
Yes, they are.
Because they understand.
They
And
understand it. And they speak the
they
language.
speak the
It's
language. Yes.
something about not being self-conscious. It's like a thing I've discovered. I think I've known it, but maybe it's just being amplified in this season, that people are not self-conscious about how they communicate what's happening to them. And if this is the issue, I just need to communicate to my healthcare provider what my issue is or what I'm going through without embarrassment.
Yes. And with understand. And so
Yes.
what I do, so when I walk in the room, 99% of people have given me the, like, a deep sigh. They're like, "I'm so glad to see somebody that looks like me." Like,
Yep.
and one young lady, she's funny. She was like, "I didn't even know they were Black midwives." I was like, "Yep, we here."
Yes.
And
And that leads me to my next. We're already in it. Like, why do we need more? Because we need more.
we need more. It improves the outcomes and it saves lives, literally.
Yes.
So we understand. And just like you said, you're able to communicate in a way that other people are not able to communicate. You're able to relate to people's lived experiences in ways that
Yes.
others have not. So I'll give you an example. While I am a midwife, and thank God that He has blessed me to be in a position now to bless others. I grew
Yeah.
up in a background where I grew up in inner city West Philly. I grew up by hardworking parents who sometimes didn't have the resources that we needed. So what
Mm-hmm.
that translated to is some of the same rough challenges that people are going through. Sometimes, occasionally, not having access to lights in our home, or
Yeah.
sometimes like just not having access to other resources, the trauma of what inner city brings, having loved ones die to gun, but like,
Yes.
so
Or feeling like you have to be on alert
or yes. And
when
so
you're in your home or in your neighborhood and not thinking that that living on alert affects your body.
and to
It
say,
absolutely does.
I know you, I know this experience, and if I can do it, so can you. And let me
Yeah.
help to walk you through it. And so
Yeah.
oftentimes what happens is that people get to these places or positions where they're like, "Oh, I've made it. I can't relate," or it's on you. But my thing is, I have made it so someone else can. So how can I
Absolutely.
give a hand to help those people I am mentoring in midwifery to say, "Hey, let me help you get to this endpoint. How can I help to mentor you?" And even to my patients, if I can get through it, so can you. And not only
Yes.
from that perspective, from a clinical perspective, I survived preeclampsia. I had a preterm delivery. I lived through postpartum depression. So let me give you a glimpse into my experience to help to bring healing to you. But the problem
Yeah.
is we're not transparent enough. We want to make
We're
us
not.
outside, but on the inside, we don't want people to see our flaws. But my thing is, if you can see my scars, you can know that the healing is available to you too.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I'll stop. I guess.
How is the progress going? Like, how is it going? The considerations or even the hopefulness of being able to bring this program into HBCUs.
And so that is so critically important. I attended at HBCU, Delaware State University, and I attended other PWI, predominantly white institutions for my graduate education. And there is a difference in the quality of education. And when I say quality, I mean in the ability to nurture people of marginalized groups in Black communities through the education process. So not feeling like your bill is paid, you good.
Yeah. Or you're one of many, just keep it moving.
One of many.
And when you are on those campuses, I went to FAMU, I'm going to tell you, they call you, they look for you. Where were you? They hold you accountable.
They bring you to their house. I had a professor, Dr. Singleton, will love her, will never forget her. She brought us over to her house. She had study sessions. She texted us. She checked in. She made sure we had access to resources. If we didn't come to study group, she was finding a way to, where you been? And we are lacking that. And so so in midwifery specifically, there's only about 7% of Black midwives in the whole nation. 7%, although 14% of birthing people identify as Black. Upward of 90% of midwives and the certified nurse midwives are white. And so, but we know that HBCUs produce most of the most lawyers, Black doctors, engineers, other healthcare professionals.
I was just looking at those statistics and just heard it on somebody. I'm always listening to somebody's podcast, just heard it on somebody's podcast about where those streams are coming from, and they're coming from HBCUs. So they should be super open to it.
Yes. And so it's a multifactorial challenge, because even if we educate through HBCUs, which is the goal, creating access in health systems to have midwifery as a more acceptable practice, even though in 90 other percent of developed nations, midwives do all of the normal vaginal deliveries, where in the US, we're just still trying to come to the crux of what that looks like. We need to have clinical placements for our students. We need to have places where midwives are operating and functioning in hospital settings and birth centers. And that's still a challenge trying to, and I did a whole talk before about the eradication of midwifery, especially Black midwifery, and the challenges of what that looks like. And so trying to overcome those barriers has been challenging for Black midwives, but midwives as a whole. So,
it's interesting. I don't know if you've ever heard of Dr. Andrea Mason. She's a doula, and I think the two of you would get along extremely well. I'll see if I can, what I can do to connect you two. I think you would have a spirited, loving conversation. But she's the first person who taught me about Sankofa and this idea of not leaving behind what we need as we move forward, Yes. And so I think that Black midwifery is one of those things we were tempted to leave behind in an attempt to assimilate to what we would call progress. It's something that we've really kind of, we haven't left it behind, but I think there was a season in our history that we didn't honor it as much as we could have, and as much as we should have.
And some of that assimilation came from the eradication by modern medicine. So what happened was that Black midwives were, especially in the South, were operating and functioning and having great outcomes. But in the early to 20th century, modern medicine came in through the fathers of gynecology, who said that midwives were, Black midwives especially, were dirty, they were unsafe, there were reasons for higher infection rates and babies dying, because it became about this. And so when it boils down to money, it causes where they try to defame and devalue what it once offered, even though these were the same Black women who were not only just delivering Black babies, they were delivering white babies too.
Absolutely. And doing the postpartum care.
And midwives Black midwifery in the US was established birth in the US was established by Black women, by Black people coming from Africa.
Yes.
In this model of care, but because modern medicine looked to make it a way that was more lucrative. And
That's it. And so really it wasn't that whole campaign was never about healthcare. It was about money.
It was about money. And it was
Yeah.
about experimenting. So
Yes.
someone called the father of gynecology who would do research on Black women to say he would do procedures unanesthetized.
Yes. Horrible.
Yes. So it was, the trauma behind. There is a whole level of trauma that even came into Black birth workers through that historical experience.
Yeah. And now we've got an opportunity. I feel like it's reclaiming what is ours.
Yes.
Just like when I had my children and my mom, the first thing she did was, I'm coming. I'm coming in. I'm like, oh, the baby is fine. Oh, I'm coming. Everybody's here for the baby. I'm coming for you.
Yes.
And would come and stay with me and make sure I was good and nursing well and eating well and wound care, all that stuff that I would have thought, do I really need that? I'll be okay. I'll tough it out, you know? And yeah, and so I would have foregone what is my inheritance. And I think we as a people have this inheritance. And I'm excited to see us embracing it. Yes, and more people are going to embrace it, which brings me to our final question for this segment, and that is, how can faith-based communities, local organizations, partner with Royal Generation or partner with you to expand and strengthen what you're doing?
And that goes back to understanding, as I understand my call and my assignment. I think one of the biggest things that we need to message to faith-based organizations, especially churches, is that we have to get back to understanding our call and our original intent. And what that means is that the church, we have enough of institutional church and more of the kingdom, and building and demonstrating what the kingdom model and paradigm looks like. And so the kingdom of God is not about, power, but it's about authority and dominion and taking our rightful place in the world. The Bible says, go into all the nations and make disciples, going into our places of influence and making disciples, not by what we say, by what we do.
That is so tremendously important. How can we disciple people by what we do?
Yes.
Like you said, that's a whole conversation. How can we disciple people by what we do? Mm-hmm.
And so really getting out there, the Bible talks about in Proverbs 29:2, the people rejoice when the righteous are in charge.
Yes.
And so not just in charge in power, but in authority, going out as church leaders and growing out as ministry leaders and standing up and advocating in community for policy change, for legislative change, going out and being action people. And so we've become so inward focused that we've neglected doing outreach, going out to the people, providing those needs, helping with resources, giving access to education, nurturing the people in your church and community, feeding them. And so not just who's attending on Sunday, but how am I building the person? How am I building the church, which is the people, and providing the resource? And when I talk about education, I feel like sometimes as church leaders, and I am guilty, I'm a church leader, so I'm speaking for all of us, that we have not educated people on the things that really matter. And so how to deal with soul issues. So teaching about postpartum depression, teaching about depression and anxiety as a whole and in general.
As a whole, yes.
Because people will find refuge if they feel like it's a safe place to be vulnerable and helping. And so sometimes in church, we have become very much so, just pray about it. It'll get better if you pray about it. No, some things come by prayer and fasting. And I like to say, and some things need counseling. And so
absolutely,
not making or stigmatizing mental health, especially in the Black community, but
Mm-hmm.
embracing those tough conversations, embracing how to take care of your temple, addressing issues like addiction, substance abuse. In Pennsylvania and in many states in the US, the number one killer in and around pregnancy is substance use and abuse. And so
Wow.
addressing, having these critical conversations and being able to stand up and take a position, not being political, but being kingdom and being
Yes,
a voice of righteousness in our communities, going out and
absolutely.
doing good. And
And
so,
it's not trying to make everybody behave
no,
how you
no,
think they should behave,
yeah,
but really contending for what I like to refer to as human flourishing, making things better for everyone, not
yeah.
just a select few, you know?
With key outreach initiatives in your churches or community organizations that deal with specific needs,
Yep.
identifying the need and making it an actionable call and to serve people because it's serving. And I always tell people, I don't go into my office promoting that I am a pastor, but people see the light and they see Jesus and they'll
Yes,
say,
they do.
well, what something's different about you. And I'm like, I know this is not a popular. I was training a midwifery student one day and she was following me in my office. And there was a woman that I can tell was overcome with depression and oppression. And she was a
Wow.
believer. And I told my student, I said, they won't teach you this in textbooks. I said, but Miss Jones, I'm just saying this for example, let's pray. What does the
Yeah.
word say? And so really getting and being able to build and disciple through what you do. I would say a huge majority of my church has come to be a part of community because of what I did in my office.
Not the out, not,
Oh,
it's interesting because often it's the other way.
oh,
It's
yes,
they're in the church, therefore they go to the community.
yes,
It's not, it doesn't happen often enough where you impact people in the community and then they end up coming to your church.
yes,
And when that happens, the beauty of it is community outreach is normal, it's appropriate, it's what we do. It's not a like a special time. It's like this is who we are, this is what we
our
do.
DNA. This is
It's
what
in
we,
our DNA. I was born into this.
yes, I was born into this.
I
Yes.
love it. I love it. So, all if you are, I'm going to ask you this final one. I said the last one was the final one, but how can, if pastors and leaders, church leaders, they don't even know how to get started? Do you have resources that you can say, hey, I can consult with you, I can give you, like, look at the size of your church, your location, and just give you some things that seem obvious to you because you are a visionary, you see it. I think that sometimes pastors and leaders are so overwhelmed with what I call the ABCs. They're looking at, attendance, and they're looking at buildings, and they're looking at cash flow. They're not thinking about discipling people and outreach. How can they connect with you, or do you have resources for them where they can figure out how to get started?
They can absolutely connect with me. I'm happy to do like one-on-one consultation with them. One of the things I laugh, my husband always says, he's like, Michelle, God not only called you to flip tables, but to help people set them. And so
Yes,
bringing people to the table to help to build and
I
to
love it.
strategize. And so always something that I'm able to do through consultancy and also advocacy work as well of how to help people advocate for people within their congregation and community.
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
How to build networks for doulas, how to build a doula ministry within your church. Like, so there's so many different things, how to partner with other community-based organizations within
Yeah.
your zip code, and just how to get
Cool.
started, how to take an idea to actually a thought to an action item.
Yes. Oh, I love it. Thank you so much for having this part of the conversation. Will you stick around for my beautiful Patreon supporters? I want to get a little bit personal and ask you three personal questions. I'm going to read these questions just to make everyone that's not on Patreon jealous. Okay. So,
Okay.
how do you personally sustain the emotional and mental weight of this kind of work? So we're going to talk about that because sometimes when you're called to change something big, something that could appear to be rooted in something else that's centuries old, how do you mentally and emotionally handle the weight of it? And then what role does mentorship play in your leadership style? And then lastly, what's giving you hope right now? Like, what's the shining light? So thank you all for listening to this part of the podcast. If you are a Patreon supporter, you can just go to patreon.com// the Culturalist podcast and catch this bonus information with our amazing guest, Michele Suggs. Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Catch me on social media at PR The Builder. Visit me online at pamross.com. Catch you next time.